It began with a single sentence quietly delivered, but powerful enough to rattle centuries of royal tradition. Behind gilded doors and beneath chandeliers that have witnessed wars, abdications, and betrayals, Princess Anne reportedly issued a final, uncompromising warning to a palace insider. The subject? Prince William's most guarded private files. What those files contain, and why Anne drew a line in the sand may be the most volatile secret the monarchy has faced in decades. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The meeting took place in a sealed chamber within a restricted wing of Buckingham Palace, far from the ceremonial corridors and carefully curated smiles. No aides hovered nearby. No press lingered beyond the gates. There was no official record, no polished minutes filed into royal archives. Just Princess Anne unyielding, exacting, forged by a lifetime of service and a palace insider whose access to Prince William's operational world was both rare and dangerously expansive. For weeks, tension had coiled beneath the palace's composed exterior. Whispers slipped through private conversations. Phrases surfaced in unexpected places, echoing the tone and structure of William's confidential memoranda. Strategic language. Personal reflections. Ideas not yet ready for daylight. Someone had been reading what was never meant to be seen. Anne's reputation has never relied on spectacle. She is the monarchy's steel backbone, the disciplined enforcer who believes duty is not discussed, it is executed. While others deliberate, she decides. While others soften their words, she sharpens them. So when reports suggest she looked across that quiet room and said, "This ends now," it was not a burst of temper. It was a verdict. The insider in question was no outsider opportunist, but a long-time trusted figure woven into the inner framework of William's strategic circle. That is what makes the rupture so perilous. Betrayal from a distance can be contained. Betrayal from within threatens collapse. The immediate aftermath was swift and clinical. Security protocols tightened overnight. Digital access points were restructured. Staff assignments shifted with little explanation. Longtime roles quietly dissolved or reassigned. The palace did not announce a scandal. It recalibrated as if preparing for impact. And strikingly, it was Anne, not King Charles, who stepped forward to confront the breach. That decision alone speaks volumes. Charles carries the weight of the crown, but Anne carries its discipline. In moments where hesitation could be fatal, she acts with a clarity that borders on ruthless. At the center of this storm are the files themselves. Not ceremonial briefings. Not routine schedules. These documents reportedly contain Prince William's most candid strategic blueprints plans for modernizing royal transparency, restructuring financial oversight, redefining public engagement, and confronting long-avoided institutional vulnerabilities. Interwoven among those proposals are handwritten reflections, personal assessments of allies and obstacles, and contingency plans for crises that have not yet surfaced publicly. They are not merely administrative papers. They are a map of the monarchy's possible future. If fragments of that vision were exposed prematurely or worse, manipulated, the consequences could destabilize more than William's leadership. They could fracture alliances, embolden critics, and ignite tensions already simmering beneath polished state appearances. Anne understood this. Her warning was not about ego. It was about containment. Because if truth leaks without context, it does not enlighten, it detonates. And that is what makes this confrontation so foreboding. Anne does not gamble lightly with internal fracture. If she was willing to draw such a final line, then what rests inside those guarded pages must reach far beyond strategy. It must touch something raw, something transformative, something powerful enough to justify risking trust at the highest levels of the crown. To understand why Anne acted with such finality, we must first uncover what makes William's private files so dangerously powerful. Locked behind biometric security and protected by oath-bound discretion, Prince William's private files were never designed for public knowledge. Yet whispers suggest they contain plans capable of reshaping the monarchy's DNA. Succession contingencies, financial restructures, personal reflections on loyalty and trust. If even fragments were mishandled, the fallout could ripple through the palace like a controlled demolition gone wrong. The archive itself is said to operate like a fortress within a fortress: layered authentication, compartmentalized clearance, encrypted storage accessible only to a microscopic circle of trusted officials. Entry is logged. Access is timed. Every document leaves a digital fingerprint. These are not idle precautions. They reflect the gravity of what rests inside. Over years, William has quietly assembled a transformation blueprint, drafting and redrafting proposals that acknowledge an uncomfortable truth: tradition alone will not secure the crown's future. He envisions a monarchy that is leaner, more transparent, less ornamental, and more accountable. To admirers, it signals evolution. To traditionalists entrenched in inherited privilege, it feels like erosion. Within those files lie strategies to modernize the royal image, streamlining ceremonial redundancies, recalibrating patronages that no longer serve a clear public purpose, and redefining how the institution engages with a skeptical generation. But image is only the surface. Far more provocative are the financial restructuring proposals. Detailed frameworks reportedly outline tighter expenditure controls, clearer reporting channels, and mechanisms designed to reduce excess that has long escaped scrutiny. Publicly, such measures would appear prudent, even admirable. Internally, they threaten comfortable arrangements and long-standing influence networks that have thrived in ambiguity. Reform in this context is not cosmetic. It is disruptive. And then there are the personal letters. Not speeches. Not sanitized statements. Candid reflections written in unguarded moments, assessments of loyalty within palace operations, concerns about external advisors, acknowledgements of frustration with inertia disguised as tradition. William's notes reportedly reveal a future king who is patient but not naive, respectful yet acutely aware of resistance forming beneath polite compliance. He writes about trust as a currency easily spent and rarely replenished. If those reflections were read by the very figures being evaluated, alliances could fracture overnight. Confidence would curdle into suspicion. Perhaps most sensitive of all are the contingency frameworks. These documents do not predict disaster. They prepare for it. Hypothetical crises are mapped with clinical precision: public scandals, sudden shifts in succession, reputational threats amplified by digital chaos. Each scenario is paired with response strategies designed to stabilize the institution before panic can metastasize. In responsible hands, this is leadership. In careless hands, it could be twisted into evidence of secret plotting. Preparedness can be reframed as ambition. Caution can be distorted into calculation. Sources suggest Princess Anne's alarm was triggered not merely by unauthorized access, but by murmurs that elements of these documents were being discussed beyond sanctioned circles. In the palace ecosystem, discretion is not etiquette. It is survival. A single selective leak could distort William's reform agenda into something far more divisive. A half-truth shared strategically could ignite rivalry, embolden dissent, or preempt initiatives before they are formally introduced. Power within the monarchy has always flowed through influence rather than proclamation. Shift the perception, and you shift the balance. William's vision for a streamlined crown challenges invisible hierarchies that have operated quietly for decades. It questions who holds authority, who controls narrative, and who benefits from opacity. If an insider sought to undermine those reforms or accelerate their exposure for personal leverage, Anne would not interpret it as curiosity. She would see a threat to institutional stability at its most vulnerable transition point. Because what is at stake is not merely a stack of confidential papers. It is control over the monarchy's next chapter, and the fragile equilibrium between legacy and reinvention. But if these files were so tightly guarded, how did suspicion fall on someone from within the palace walls? Every monarchy survives on loyalty, but it is often undone by proximity. The palace insider at the heart of this unfolding drama wasn't an outsider seeking sabotage. They were embedded, trusted, present in strategy meetings, and granted clearance beyond most senior aides. So when Princess Anne reportedly identified this individual as a potential risk, it sent a chilling message. The threat was not external, it was sitting at the table. In royal circles, loyalty is not merely a virtue, it is a covenant. The insider in question had built a career on that covenant. Years of impeccable service. a public record unmarred by scandal, a reputation shaped by discretion so consistent it became invisible. They were the kind of figure monarchies rely on without hesitation: the steady presence in briefings, the quiet architect behind operational precision, which is precisely why suspicion struck like a fracture through marble. It wasn't loud, it was subtle, and that subtlety made it dangerous. Whispers began as faint irregularities, a phrase repeated too accurately in an informal conversation, a question posed about a strategic adjustment that had not yet been formally disclosed. Nothing overt, nothing provable. But in an ecosystem where information is rationed with surgical care, even an echo can be incriminating. Were these overlaps innocent deductions from experience, or evidence of boundaries quietly crossed? The uncertainty alone was enough to unsettle those attuned to risk. Princess Anne is known for noticing what others dismiss. While some saw coincidence, she reportedly saw pattern. She began mapping access against language, attendance against timing, who had clearance to which summaries, who participated in which restricted briefings, who appeared unusually prepared for discussions still in draft form. It was not a dramatic investigation with accusations hurled across corridors. It was controlled, methodical, almost clinical. Yet beneath that composure lay something sharper: the instinct that proximity to power, if left unchecked, can morph into entitlement. The insider's privileges placed them within reach of digital outlines and briefing synopses connected to William's protected archive. There is no public confirmation of documents copied or extracted. But monarchies do not wait for catastrophe to validate concern. The perception of vulnerability can be as destabilizing as proof itself. And when the future king's reform agenda rests inside those files, even perceived fragility becomes intolerable. When Anne finally confronted the insider, the exchange was reportedly restrained, almost austere. No raised voices, no theatrical accusations. The individual denied misconduct, attributing mirrored language to informed speculation rather than exposure. Their defense was composed, measured, even tinged with quiet hurt. After years of loyalty, to be viewed through a lens of suspicion was its own indictment. Yet Anne's response was not framed as condemnation. It was framed as containment. She allegedly spoke of absolute impermeability, insisting that those closest to strategic power must be beyond reproach not only in action, but in appearance. In her calculus, even the suggestion of compromised discretion could erode confidence at a time when the monarchy balances between continuity and transformation. This was not about proving guilt. It was about eliminating risk before it metastasized. And still, uncertainty lingered. The insider's calm demeanor, their steady refusal to concede wrongdoing, introduced a disquieting possibility. Had Anne intercepted a genuine threat in its infancy? Or had she placed a loyal ally under a shadow that might never fully lift? In institutions built on trust, suspicion leaves residue. It alters dynamics. It reshapes conversations. What began as a question of access evolved into something more psychological, a test of allegiance under pressure. Because safeguarding the crown's future is not only about securing documents, it is about fortifying the fragile human architecture that surrounds them. And when that architecture shows even a hairline crack, the consequences ripple far beyond one confrontation. As tension tightened behind palace doors, another question emerged: why was Princess Anne leading this charge instead of the king himself? In moments of royal crisis, all eyes traditionally turn to the monarch. Yet in this unfolding drama, it was Princess Anne, not King Charles, who delivered the decisive warning. That choice alone speaks volumes. Was this a matter of delegation, or a deliberate shield to protect the throne from direct confrontation? The answer reveals how power truly moves within the monarchy's inner core. Princess Anne has long functioned as the monarchy's quiet executor when tensions threaten to spill beyond containment. Decades of navigating family fractures, public scrutiny, and institutional strain have carved in her a reputation for steadiness under pressure. She does not chase headlines, she absorbs shockwaves. In previous moments of internal discord, when emotions clouded judgment and optics demanded restraint, Anne has stepped into the space between conflict and consequence, acting not for applause but for preservation. This situation was no different, except the stakes felt sharper. the timing more precarious. King Charles, balancing diplomatic obligations and the relentless visibility of the crown, stood at a delicate intersection. Any direct involvement from him could have magnified suspicion into spectacle. A monarch confronting a palace insider over access to the heir's confidential files would signal crisis at the highest level. By allowing Anne to intervene, the institution maintained a strategic buffer. It was not avoidance. It was insulation. The crown preserved its neutrality while still addressing the threat with unmistakable seriousness. But this was more than optics. Anne's relationship with Prince William is rooted in a shared understanding of duty stripped of sentimentality. Their bond is pragmatic, anchored in mutual respect rather than performative warmth. She recognizes in him the weight of inheritance and the urgency of adaptation. She understands that his modernization blueprint is not vanity, it is survival. And she also recognizes resistance when it begins to crystallize beneath polite compliance. When whispers surfaced and patterns emerged, she did not require dramatic proof to grasp the implications. She saw the fault line forming. Her decision to act carried two intertwined messages: urgency and containment. Urgency, because hesitation invites escalation. In a palace environment where perception can metastasize into rumor within hours, clarity must arrive before confusion hardens into narrative. Containment, because suspicion left unchecked corrodes unity. William's inner circle cannot afford fractures while he drafts a future that already challenges entrenched comfort. By stepping forward swiftly, Anne narrowed the breach before it widened into institutional doubt. There is also protocol, an often misunderstood framework that allows senior royals to intervene discreetly in matters affecting operational integrity. Influence within the monarchy does not always mirror ceremonial rank. It flows through experience, credibility, and earned authority. Anne commands all three. Her intervention reinforces an internal hierarchy invisible to the public but unmistakable within palace walls. When she speaks with finality, it is understood that the matter has crossed from discussion into decision. For other insiders, the signal was unmistakable. Proximity to power does not grant immunity. Clearance is conditional. Trust is monitored. Even long-standing service cannot outweigh perceived risk to the institution's stability. Anne's involvement elevated the situation from a minor irregularity to a line that could not be crossed again. The message reverberated quietly but firmly. Discretion is not optional. It is foundational. And yet beneath this calculated containment lay something more human. Anne was not confronting a nameless adversary. She was addressing someone woven into the daily fabric of William's strategic orbit. Years of loyalty, shared briefings, and mutual reliance do not evaporate without emotional residue. To question that trust is to acknowledge vulnerability at the heart of the institution. What makes this moment so compelling is not only the strategic choreography but the unspoken cost. Protecting the throne sometimes requires risking relationships that once felt secure. And while the public may see only procedural firmness, within palace corridors the emotional temperature was rising. Yet beneath strategic containment, emotions were quietly escalating, because this confrontation wasn't just procedural. It was personal. While Princess Anne issued her warning with surgical precision, Prince William remained publicly silent. No statement, no denial, no visible shift. But silence in the monarchy can be louder than outrage. Those close to the inner circle suggest that behind closed doors, William faced a conflict far deeper than institutional risk. It was a reckoning with trust. William has long cultivated a leadership style defined by composure, measured words, controlled reactions, a deliberate refusal to be drawn into noise. Yet sources imply that this moment struck somewhere more personal than procedural. Because when suspicion enters your closest circle, it does not knock politely, it lingers. It alters how you read a glance, how you interpret a pause, how you measure loyalty. Trust, once unsettled, does not simply reset. It recalibrates. Preparing for kingship has always meant carrying scrutiny like a second skin. Every initiative dissected. Every silence analyzed. But this was different. The potential vulnerability was not external criticism or media speculation. It was the possibility that someone entrusted with safeguarding his long-term vision had allowed its edges to blur beyond authorized walls. William's private files were not drafted in haste. They represent years of strategic sequencing reforms designed to unfold methodically, reshaping the institution step by disciplined step. If those plans were prematurely exposed, the timing, the control would no longer be his. And for a future monarch, control over timing is everything. The emotional weight of that realization reportedly settled heavily. William is said to rely on a tight advisory circle, a group chosen not for flattery but for discretion and competence. To question even one link within that chain risks destabilizing the entire structure. It forces uncomfortable reflection. Was access granted too freely? Were boundaries too assumed? In royal ecosystems, loyalty is expected, but expectation does not guarantee impermeability. The psychological strain of guarding reform while suspecting fissures within the guard itself creates a quiet, relentless pressure. And yet, outwardly, nothing changed. No public acknowledgement. No performative reassurance. William's silence was not avoidance, it was strategy. By allowing Anne's warning to stand without amplification, he preserved institutional dignity. Reacting impulsively would have validated speculation. Addressing it publicly would have invited scrutiny into matters better contained. Discipline in this context became its own assertion of authority. Behind closed doors, however, conversations reportedly unfolded with gravity. William and Anne, bound by pragmatic trust, are said to have dissected the implications carefully, not in anger but in analysis. What vulnerabilities existed within digital safeguards? Which advisory channels required tightening? How could future reforms be shielded without breeding paranoia? Leadership in this moment was less about punishment and more about learning about fortifying systems rather than broadcasting fracture. Insiders suggest subtle shifts have already begun. Advisory loops narrowed. Access privileges reviewed with renewed rigor. Communication pathways refined to minimize interpretive leakage. These adjustments are not dramatic purges, they are quiet recalibrations. Yet quiet recalibration often signals the most decisive transformation. When trust is shaken, leaders either retreat or refine. William appears to have chosen refinement. Still, something intangible has changed. Silence can steady an institution, but it also sends a message. Those within palace corridors understand that unspoken consequences can carry more weight than public reprimands. William's restraint may be read as composure, but it is also a warning, a reminder that proximity to the future king demands more than competence. It demands unwavering discretion. And beneath it all lingers a deeper tension. Because if trust has been tested once, it can be tested again. And as William quietly strengthens his inner circle, the monarchy stands at a fragile intersection between vision and vulnerability. But as the palace recalibrates internally, the greater question looms: what happens if even a fraction of those private files surfaces publicly? Imagine headlines dissecting strategic reforms before they're ready. Imagine private reflections reframed as controversy. If Prince William's confidential files were ever exposed even partially, the narrative could spiral beyond control. In a media climate hungry for royal drama, selective leaks can distort intention into scandal overnight. The monarchy's survival has always depended on timing, and timing, in this case, is everything. The modern crown does not operate in silence anymore. It operates under relentless, microscopic scrutiny. A single leaked paragraph can ignite global commentary within minutes. Amplified, analyzed, weaponized. Context evaporates. Nuance collapses. What was drafted as cautious contingency planning can be rebranded as ruthless ambition. What was written as introspection can be twisted into accusation. William's reform proposals, carefully sequenced, deliberately paced, were never designed for abrupt exposure. Stripped of their gradual framework, they could appear divisive rather than visionary, radical rather than responsible. Consider the contingency documents alone. Preparedness for hypothetical crises is a mark of disciplined leadership. Yet in isolation, those frameworks could be framed as expectation of scandal or worse, anticipation of upheaval. Political observers might misinterpret internal risk assessments as signals of instability. International partners could question continuity. Domestic critics might seize upon selective excerpts to challenge credibility before reforms even begin. In a constitutional monarchy, perception is not cosmetic. It is structural. Undermine perception, and you erode authority. Financial restructuring plans pose an equally volatile risk. Proposals intended to tighten expenditure and increase transparency could be recast as admissions of prior excess. Headlines could suggest hidden mismanagement where none was alleged. Opponents of reform might claim overreach. Traditionalists might frame modernization as abandonment of heritage. The ripple effects would not stop at palace gates. Parliamentary voices, global media outlets, and digital commentators would shape narratives faster than the institution could respond. And once narrative escapes controlled timing, reclaiming it becomes an uphill battle fought in real time. There is also the human dimension. Personal reflections. William's candid notes about loyalty, influence, and internal recalibration were never meant for public consumption. If those reflections surfaced, relationships within the royal household could strain under suspicion. Advisors might question whether they were being evaluated or trusted. Allies could retreat defensively. The delicate architecture of unity would feel the tremor. Because in tightly bound institutions, even implied doubt can fracture cohesion. Public speculation would only magnify the instability. In an age where rumor trends before fact, fragments become full stories. Anonymous sources gain credibility. Silence becomes interpreted as confirmation. And as commentary spirals, the monarchy's carefully cultivated steadiness risks appearing reactive. The long-term consequence would not merely be embarrassment. It would be erosion of trust from the public, from government, from within its own ranks. Institutional confidence is built over generations. It can be shaken in hours. This is why prevention matters more than damage control. Once disclosure occurs, response becomes defensive. Containment transforms into crisis management. Princess Anne's urgency likely stems from understanding this unforgiving dynamic. She knows that reform must unfold on the heir's timeline, not the media's. That preparation must remain shielded until execution is secure. That strategic evolution cannot survive if prematurely dissected under hostile light. In this transitional era for the crown, where legacy meets modernization, the margin for misstep is razor thin. William's vision may be bold, but boldness without control invites destabilization. The files represent not just ideas, but sequencing an intricate choreography of change. Interrupt that choreography, and the entire performance falters. And yet, as the palace tightens its defenses and reinforces its silence, a new tension rises. Because when power is threatened, it rarely remains static. It recalibrates. It shifts alliances. It redraws invisible boundaries. Yet amid the fear of exposure, another possibility lingers. What if the warning has already changed the balance of power inside the palace? Warnings don't just stop behavior, they redraw boundaries. Princess Anne's decisive move may have done more than silence an insider. It may have redefined who holds operational authority in the monarchy's next era. In royal systems built on hierarchy, moments like this quietly reshape influence. And those watching from within the palace walls understand that power rarely announces itself, it moves subtly. Within the monarchy, authority operates on two levels. There are formal titles, crowns, heirs, ceremonial rank. And then there is relational power, earned over decades of discretion and resolve. Anne's intervention reinforced her role not merely as a senior royal, but as an institutional guardian. When she spoke, she did not just address an individual, she fortified a perimeter. The effect was immediate and psychological. A final warning reverberates far beyond the person standing in front of it. It settles into corridors. It lingers in meetings. It sharpens attention. For Prince William, the aftermath appears less reactive and more consolidating. Sources suggest his inner circle has grown tighter, not broader. Advisors who consistently demonstrated discretion now find themselves drawn closer to strategic discussions. Access, once assumed secure, is being re-evaluated with quiet precision. This is not a purge. It is a refinement. But refinement in a royal ecosystem can feel like elevation for some and marginalization for others. And those shifts rarely go unnoticed. Increased scrutiny over staff access sends a clear signal. Proximity to reform requires proof of alignment. Those who hesitated in private conversations, who questioned modernization behind closed doors, may now reassess their footing. Anne's move did more than contain a perceived breach, it removed ambiguity. The future king's trajectory toward a leaner, more accountable crown is advancing. Resistance, if it exists, must now calculate its cost. Quiet alignment has reportedly followed among reform-supporting royals. Individuals who previously maintained cautious neutrality may interpret this episode as a decisive moment. If Anne is willing to intervene with such authority, then the modernization blueprint is not speculative, it is imminent. Momentum has a gravitational pull, and when it gathers, it either absorbs or isolates. Potential resistance figures, sensing the recalibrated balance, may retreat into guarded compliance rather than risk overt friction. The psychological impact of that warning cannot be overstated. In tightly woven institutions, consequences shape culture. The insider's confrontation, restrained though it was, demonstrated that discretion is no longer an inherited privilege, but a monitored obligation. Future insiders will absorb that lesson quickly. Access to sensitive strategy is conditional, not ceremonial. Trust must be sustained, not presumed. Over time, such signals strengthen succession preparedness. By tightening advisory loops and reinforcing accountability, William's pathway to kingship becomes less vulnerable to internal turbulence. The architecture surrounding him grows sturdier, less permeable. And while the public sees only composed appearances, beneath that surface a new operational clarity is taking shape. Yet power realignments carry their own risks. Consolidation can breed loyalty, but it can also generate quiet resentment among those who feel displaced. Silence may indicate compliance, or it may conceal recalculation. Within palace walls, influence rarely disappears, it adapts. Anne's warning may have secured the perimeter, but it has also clarified the stakes. The message appears unmistakable. The heir's vision is not negotiable. Reform will proceed, measured and deliberate, and those who stand too close without unwavering discretion will find themselves repositioned. Stability, for now, seems restored. Operational authority appears firmer. The balance has shifted subtly, strategically, but undeniably. But as stability appears restored, one final question lingers in the shadows. Was this truly the end of the conflict? The palace is quiet again. Official engagements proceed. Smiles return to public balconies. Yet history teaches us that silence inside royal walls often conceals deeper recalculations. Princess Anne's final warning may have prevented immediate disruption, but it also revealed vulnerability. And in institutions built on legacy, even a glimpse of weakness invites new tests of strength. For now, visible unity has been carefully restored. Appearances are polished. Schedules unfold without disruption. The monarchy presents what it has always presented during moments of strained continuity. Prince William stands composed, measured in tone, unwavering in posture. Princess Anne resumes her duties with the same disciplined focus that has defined her public life. To the outside world, the tremor has passed. But inside the institution, subtle recalibrations continue beneath the surface. Security protocols, already formidable, have reportedly grown tighter. Digital safeguards are undergoing renewed scrutiny, not in panic but in precision. Access logs are examined with sharper eyes. Clearance levels reassessed. Layers of encryption reinforced. These adjustments are not dramatic announcements. They are quiet fortifications. Because once vulnerability has been exposed even briefly, it cannot be unseen. And the monarchy understands that prevention must now operate at a heightened level. William, sources suggest, has doubled down on discretion. His reform blueprint remains intact, but its protective perimeter has expanded. Conversations are more deliberate. Strategic drafts circulate within an even narrower advisory ring. There is no retreat from modernization, only a more disciplined shield around it. Leadership in this phase is less about unveiling vision and more about safeguarding timing. He knows that the road to the throne is not merely ceremonial. It is political, psychological, and deeply internal. Anne's vigilance has not receded either. If anything, it has intensified. She remains a quiet sentinel within palace operations, monitoring currents others may overlook. Her warning was described as final, but finality in royal systems rarely signals complacency. It signals awareness. She understands that institutions endure not by assuming loyalty, but by reinforcing it. And so she watches not publicly, not theatrically, but with the same steady resolve that shaped her intervention. The insider at the heart of the confrontation remains an unanswered question. Neither publicly disgraced nor openly vindicated, their position appears uncertain, neither expelled nor fully restored. In royal ecosystems, ambiguity can be its own consequence. Trust, once strained, rarely returns to its original shape. Whether they remain within palace operations or gradually fade from influence, the ripple of suspicion lingers. And others, observing carefully, will internalize the lesson. This episode underscores a fragile truth. The monarchy's most formidable challenges rarely charge at its gates with banners raised. They emerge quietly from within through access, proximity, and human fallibility. As William advances toward kingship, the greater battle will not revolve solely around public approval. It will hinge on internal alignment, on whether those entrusted with shaping the next era move in harmony or in hesitation. For now, the crown stands steady. The files are reportedly secured once more. The line has been drawn. But history whispers a cautionary note. Stability after crisis is not the same as immunity from the next test. If this warning was truly final, it may mark the moment a new chapter of royal authority quietly began, one defined by tighter control, sharper boundaries, and unwavering resolve. Or it may be remembered as the spark that revealed just how close the institution came to fracture. Either way, one reality cannot be ignored. The future king's secrets are no longer just documents resting behind biometric locks. They are leverage. Strategic, sensitive, and powerful leverage. And somewhere within palace corridors, someone now understands exactly how much weight that leverage carries, waiting, perhaps, for another moment, when silence feels heavy enough to break. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.